All right, friends, welcome back again. Welcome back to the GyozaBoyz podcast. Today we're gonna have a very special discussion about where DC is going and the man himself right now, which is Brian Michael Bendis in
hmm
DC. Now, I'm not the best knowledgeable on Brian Michael Bendis, so I'm hoping Jose is gonna teach me more about that. I mean, I'm personally, I mean, I don't know his body of work that well. So I'm hoping you can teach me something about Brian Michael Bendis, Jose.
Yeah, no, we'll get into the origins of Bendis in terms of how I discovered him at his time at Marvel for those 17 years and his DC work. But originally, the guy was a independent comic book type of guy. I know he's had a lot of recent creator-owned material that he's worked on the side, like Scarlet and Powers is very successful as well.
And what about you, Edwin? Are you like a big Brian Michael Bendis fan too?
I followed mostly his Daredevil run, which was a fantastic run.
Yep.
He did it was very detective style, like like criminal, style. And I enjoyed it. It was very fun for the time. And I also followed his Ultimate Universe run, with Spider-Man with Pete back in the old days.
Yep.
Well, I
Likewise.
mean, what is the current reaction to his Superman run? Because I know
Well, I mean,
I think he's still writing Action Comics, right?
technically speaking,
Mm.
I believe he's still on both Action and Superman regularly. To my knowledge, I don't think the headline has come up that he's already left one or the other because his contract for DC is a multimedia type, at least 10-year plus type of contract. So they put him on Superman, and he starts with his Man of Steel miniseries.
Right.
And the
And
first thing he
but
does,
before you continue, what year did he come back to DC, or did DC get him back? Like, was it 2000? No, I mean, like 2019, 2018?
actually, yeah, he'd been at Marvel since about 2000. So he made the jump about, yeah, I'm gonna say a year ago, since 2019.
Okay. So I mean, he has a ways to go here, but
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
go on.
he's still very much green in the ways of working, in the ways of working for DC as it stands currently.
Right. So, but I mean, the reaction to his Superman run right now, since he only been writing it for like a year or so.
hmm
I mean, is it a good reaction right now? Because I mean, I've read some of his Action Comics run.
of the last arc, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What did you think in terms of jumping in to his voice and style for Superman, or
Well,
you know?
in terms of how his writing style is, he's more of I mean, that's what I also read on, a lot of forums too as well, that he's kind of a world builder kind of guy. He's not really that
hmm
guy that just jumps in, tells you the story, and then just goes.
Yeah.
And he
Mm-hmm.
actually, wants to build the world around what's happening, which is why I guess his Marvel run was so popular because he built, those two the worlds in Marvel,
hmm
which made people like, oh shit, expanded on characters, built on characters, and
Yep.
created something that other writers can actually follow up on. Create their own universes to within that universe for a specific character.
True, but then the thing about it is that the reason why his tenure at Marvel was very much like a double-edged sword was because his way with words and dialogue, specifically on his Avengers work and moving on to X-Men,
Mm-hmm.
was very much. It all seemed very out of character in a lot of instances, very dragged out. Like, what was the point of this particular arc? Specifically for his 600 issues of Uncanny X-Men, with the whole deal with Cyclops being enemy number one,
Mm-hmm.
and the way he wrote adult Cyclops, and the way he brought the original five in, and the reason, but also he had this idea of not knowing how to properly finish the original five X-Men story and really send them back home in a sort of proper send-off, which and by then is the reason why that scenario was so overextended, and it its welcome was pretty long. It overstated they overstayed their welcome in a way, and
Okay.
I feel like when it comes to the original five, he lost control
But I
of what
mean,
he wanted to do.
it, for comic books, like, can you really overstay your welcome in comic books?
Um, I don't know.
Well, a lot of people kept on saying the same thing with Dan Slott. Like, you know, like
Yes,
when his
yes,
run with Spider-Man, it was like
yeah.
he overstayed his welcome, and
That was a 10-year extension. No one expected, because no one had the galls to tell him to, like, maybe it's time for you to move on.
right, they were like, nope, because I mean, but they enjoyed, like, a lot of fans enjoyed his Spider-Man run until
For the
Superior
most
came
part,
out.
yeah.
Yeah, but
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 because
then,
of his,
but then Bendis is the same way, because Bendis is very much, because of his style as a crime novelist, and just his way with street level, gritty, type scenarios, which is why his work on Daredevil was so well received, because that's his strength, which is why Jessica Jones is so well received as one of his babies, because what he did, I'm going to do a modern day private detective story, but she's going to have a lot of problems.
so I mean, would you
right.
rather have stories that's like, touch and go, or do you want a story that continues and builds on and expands and expands?
No, I mean that I prefer the latter. I prefer the expansion, but it really just depends on the handling and where it's going as an ultimate conclusion. Because at some point, much like what happened with them with X-Men after Avengers, you kind of have to ask yourself, where's the finish line? What are you building towards, and what's the ultimate project?
Right. So what's DC trying to build towards then, right
Quite
now?
honestly, I don't know where they're going with Superman, particularly because the way he writes Superman, or he writes him differently for action and for Superman itself. What he did with Jonathan, for example, with Superman, and having his whole um, Mr. Oz arc of having Jor-El take Jonathan away into space to teach him how to be a good little Kryptonian boy. But then at the same
Hmm.
time, Bendis wanted to age him up, and he takes this 11-year-old kid and throws him in a wormhole, and all of a sudden his journey to get back to Earth, he comes back at 17, because Bendis really wanted him to be part of the Legion of Superheroes.
Right, right. I mean, that
And
that's
that just came out of nowhere for a lot of people. That's
but
why
that
I think.
also could build into another story, like that storyline of, what happened when that time period when he, tried to come back from being thrown into like that area.
Yeah, and I've read that entire run of where he left off, and how Jonathan was telling the story of what he'd been through to get back to Earth, to get back to warn his parents about, hey, by the way, Dad, listen, you're my granddad is crazy. He has to be stopped, because that was his reaction. And the one thing about, because they were separated
Hmm.
when their ship was caught in that wormhole, they were separated, and John found himself on Earth 3 during the Crime Syndicate arc,
Hmm.
where the Crime Syndicate live, and they're basically the evil Justice League. Now, according to people who reviewed that issue of Superman, that entire arc, everyone's talking like, man, they, according to prior knowledge, the Crime Syndicate was put on a shelf during Jeff Johns' run after Forever Evil during the New 52 storyline.
Right.
So every single part of that review, people are saying, well, it's Bendis. He doesn't really care. He's just taking this particular toy because it fits the need of what he wanted to do, and why he had Ultraman take an interest in Little John and keep him hostage in a volcano and aired out his grievances. Like,
Mhm.
really have this kid be his therapist, saying like, I know your dad, but your dad's a wuss. I'm better than him. He
Hmm.
cried in front of him, but he kept him trapped in that volcano. When he finally got away, he ends up escaping and trying to go to the Hall of Justice of that world by trying to get a signal out. And then he ends up encountering the evil version of his mom, Evil Lois, aka Superwoman, who almost was going to kill him, by the way, until his grandfather shows up and shoots her with a ray gun. And Jor-El comes back completely changed from where Dan Jurgens had him, appearance-wise and motivation. And Jor-El, he takes him back and he takes him in the ship and says, "You have no idea how long I've been looking for you. All the deals I've made." There's that moment of desperation that it's that moment where we wanted a concrete answer and we want to see that, but we don't, because now Bendis leaves that open to interpretation off panel about saying like, what are you talking about?
Right. But that
Right.
Yeah.
also can lead to, maybe he's opening the door for other writers to take over, and tell their story
That
on
would
what's
have
gonna
been great
happen.
if they hadn't essentially put Jor-El back on Krypton at the moment of its destruction, and say, yeah, we're putting him back because he's already been sentenced to international, and well, not international, but interplanetary
Or interdimensional kind of
demise
thing.
because of everything he had done. And
Right, and him and Clark don't get along, right?
well, no, they didn't
that?
get along at that point because of
The
their
differences.
their viewpoints about the whole deal with Mr. Oz and how he was set up there. And
Right.
then you add in the fact that Mr. Bendis creating his new enemy for Superman called Rogozar, which he comes in and says, I'm going to create this character that was this alien bounty hunter who had a secret connection
Similar to
saying that he
similar to
destroyed
Lobo.
Krypton. I'm sorry?
Similar to Lobo, right?
No, it's dude. The guy's name was Rogozar.
Right, but he was the bounty hunter. He was an alien, so he was similar to
Right.
Lobo.
He was in terms of occupation. Yeah, you could say he was like Lobo in terms of being a bounty hunter, because this guy
Right.
was supposed to be the most feared dude in the galaxy, and he had this affinity for this hatred of Kryptonians.
He was the
So what they
Boba
did
Fett
was
of
they
DC.
had Supergirl spin off from that, and have Supergirl
Right.
track his ass down with his axe for revenge of this guy coming to Earth, beating both of them up, and going to the Fortress of Solitude and taking the bottle city of Kandar and destroying it.
Oh my God.
And that's what he did. But as far as an actual fight that Superman beat him 1-to-1, it never happened, because every single time Bendis plotted out that fight, it would be that, Clark can't handle this guy. He has the upper hand for a little bit and then gets his ass whooped. And then something else happens. But there was never a concrete, like, I got him.
Well, I mean,
Superman-
going back to when Bendis was in Marvel, like he built those two worlds. Like he's a writer that builds worlds.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, Edwin,
Right.
as a writer, up and coming writer yourself,
Right.
if you were like, if DC came to you and be like,
Right.
hey, you're gonna come into DC, but you're only gonna write for these few titles. I mean, how would you feel if you were like that person in Marvel that built those worlds and created and helped Marvel get to where it is in terms of movies, in terms of characters, in terms of sales? Like, how would
Right.
you feel if you're just put into that corner and be like, these are the only few titles that you're gonna write about?
Well, for me, I would feel very, discouraged because, like, if you know my resume,
But
and
you're fucking Michael Brian Bendis though.
yeah, exactly. Like you know my resume, you know what I've done in Marvel. I created a beautiful Ultimate Universe, with great characters, great
one of the
storytelling,
founding
great plot.
fathers of it, alongside a couple
It-
other people.
Exactly. I would feel a certain type of way. One, you don't trust me. That's one already. You think I'm going to ruin your characters, which is like totally bogus because Brian does a fantastic job with all these characters in Marvel.
And the interesting thing about it is that I think part of his personal plan as a creator is because he also wanted to make up some new characters, and he already has. Now,
Right.
how long
And-
they last in terms of those two new characters for Superman, we don't
Right.
know.
But
we
also-
don't know exactly.
Right. The question comes up to is why did DC want Bendis back then? What was the reason? What was the catalyst? Was it because DC was actually not doing so good in their comic book sales? Is that
I
the
don't
reason
know,
why?
because I think another half of the multi-year deal was because Bendis jumped in because he wanted to write chosen movies. And I
probably-
think that's still a thing he wants to do, even though they haven't given him that opportunity yet.
Right. I think you should definitely go, do some shows because, like, right now we need some more writers for shows. But movies as well would be great. I would love to see more movie work. But that's why I think why he chose DC, because I think Marvel wasn't giving him that extra niche. Like, hey, you want to work on a Marvel movie? We already have Marvel Studios, but the
Right.
writers in Marvel Studios are already doing a fantastic job.
Exactly.
So we might not need, Brian Michael Bendis, which is kind of sad because, like,
No, but
he
in
has
a
a great
way,
skill.
for the past 10 years, a lot of the MCU's tapestry is taken from the Ultimate Universe in terms
Mhm.
of how they approach things.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
The way that Tom Holland's playing Spider-Man is one for one Ultimate Peter, and he said it. Everything else, these Avengers that we've followed for 10 years are a Disney-friendly carbon copy of what Mark Millar and Brian Hitch did with the Ultimates.
Right.
and so on and so forth. I feel like the X-Men's introduction, they might do that as well, where it'll be half Claremont inspiration, half Ultimate, and the FF, most likely the FF, but I honestly hope that's not the case.
Right.
But it seems that it might be.
It's
Right.
looking more like it. I mean, they're trying to do the FF in more of a like really mature style instead of
Right,
younger instead of beginning.
right.
A lot of the talk has been like they could have been in the quantum realm, and that's how we could introduce the FF.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a
So,
lot of that as well. Others want a period piece set that they were, they were trapped there since the 60s and they emerge
right.
and
I
welcome
mean, I
to
just hope that
2020.
if they're gonna do an FF, just keep it the four instead of
Right.
having the kids around. Like, I mean, I don't mind the kids, but like, just give me the original
No,
FF for now.
I would love to see the kids, but the kids you have to build to that. I mean,
Right, of
Right.
course.
it'll obviously be the four because they're already laying the groundwork for how to properly work with Doctor Doom, which I'm very
Exactly.
excited about. But yeah, Franklin and Valeria, that has to be worked upon because it has to be the similar path to introducing them as they just did with the whole Morgan Stark situation.
Right.
Mm.
I mean, would it be cool to have it narratively that they say that, fan casted Susan Richards, aka Emily Blunt, for example,
Oh yeah. I mean,
comes out to be pregnant and, there's Franklin first?
going off topic a little bit, those two castings, I think will be perfect. Like, I think they should just make an announcement, even though there's nothing going on right now.
Right.
Like John Krasinski and her his wife Emily Blunt
Uh-huh.
should be Mr. and Mrs. Fantastic. That's it.
Yeah, and that's been fan casted for a couple of years now, and they're very much on board. Like, in fact, the Thor War of the Realms art, when that first issue came out of the first storyline, of the first part of the storyline, their Reed Richards essentially was a carbon copy of that photo of John Krasinski with a beard.
Right.
And the way they drew his face was very much more akin to his facial structure.
So I
Like,
mean, going.
that was a very young looking Reed.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
that's not the same older. That wasn't the same older, scruffier, bearded Reed from Secret Wars Part 3.
Right.
That was his version of Reed from like people like us ourselves as fans of the actors. Yeah, like we're in it because originally rumor was Miss Blunt was not going to be Susan. She auditioned for Black Widow but didn't get it.
Right. Same thing with John. John wanted to be Captain
Captain
America,
America,
but he
alongside a
didn't
couple
get
other
it.
people like the dude from Daredevil, Bullseye, also auditioned as well.
From the TV
Right.
show or
Right, from the TV show,
TV
yeah.
show.
okay.
And
That guy was
yeah,
so good.
yeah, like a lot of people audition for Cap. Like, there's so many other aspects of actors that audition for stuff that we didn't get to see. So who knows how many other people auditioned? Because originally, the Avengers would have been, for example, Edward Norton as Bruce Banner Hulk, right? Had it not changed.
I would agree with that. Like if they
You have
kept it
him.
as Edward Norton, I would have been fine.
You have him. You have
I miss Edward Norton.
Emily Blunt as Black Widow. You have Tom Cruise, for example, as Iron Man, because that was a thing. You have God, some other couple people for Thor and another guy for Cap. I think like maybe one of the anyway two other like known actors, but like low status for Cap and Thor. And
Wasn't
there
it
you go.
just
That would have been the Avengers.
right? Wasn't it wasn't it Brad Pitt for Thor? I think.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. For
And I
example,
was
yeah, Brad Pitt
like,
for Thor.
I was
And,
like, no.
I mean,
he
God,
does look the part though. I'm not gonna lie, Brad Pitt.
I mean,
Brad
like
Pitt?
he
With
already
his long
he
hair.
already played. Exactly, but he already played a similar historical character with Achilles in Troy.
Right. And right.
Right.
So I think he could have played Thor if he put more, if they gave him the chance. But
But
would be too much
him using
names.
the accents, nah.
That would have been interesting for him to have to pull off,
Because if you read the comic books, he talks in those olden world
Yeah,
kind of
very
way
old
of
English
talking.
speak.
Like
So I
Nay.
mean,
And that's all Stan to really have this Thor speak that way, like if it's like, oh, here's my version of Thor from the mythology, and here's how he'll speak.
so, I
Right.
mean, But going back to it, fan casting aside and everything, like these are the worlds that Bendis built.
Yeah.
So when he left Marvel, like, is that what he really wanted to bring over to DC to create those worlds again? Even though
I would
DC
assume that
is
that's the case
established in those kind of areas.
because he wanted his name out there in the credits for a film or TV show episode because he had already experienced writing TV when they adapted the Power List to the PlayStation Plus for those 2 seasons. He was an executive producer and he wrote the pilot. The second time he executive produced something and wrote an episode was MTV's Spider-Man cartoon from 2003.
Wait, MTV made the Spider-Man cartoon? I don't know about?
Yeah, the 2003 CGI cartoon, Spider-Man with Neil Patrick Harris. You know, the one that looks bad nowadays, but it was the, you know, I like to call it the Dawson's Creek Spider-Man show. You know, where MJ was like just thirsty. So
I mean, I have to go back and check that out. I mean, hopefully it's on Disney Plus or something like that. But
no, it's not. It's not on Disney
okay,
Plus.
then
Disney
oh,
Plus doesn't have the
not for me.
rights to air because that Spider-Man cartoon is strictly Sony, so it's under Sony's purview, much like Spectacular.
But also, like, the only Spider-Man cartoon for me is from the 90s. That's it. Like,
oh no, of course. But did you ever watch
94.
Spectacular?
When it was it ever on Disney XD?
It was on Disney. Well, it moved from its original channel to Disney XD back in the day. At one point, it was.
I'm sure I've seen some episodes of it.
It's
I'm sure I did.
It's awesome. You should check it out. Those 2 seasons.
I mean, if it's on Disney Plus, I definitely will.
No, you can't. No, because that one is that's strictly Sony. They're not going to put that on there.
So it's called Superior Spider-Man?
Spectacular.
Oh, Spectacular Spider-Man? Are you sure? I thought I'd seen it on Disney Plus somewhere.
No, the Disney Plus ones they brought back the 1967 cartoon, the 1980s version, Amazing Friends, Spider-Man Unlimited from '99, Spider-Man '94, and the Ultimate Spider-Man and the current Spider-Man, Marvel Spider-Man, which is the Spider-Man cartoon I call the Cardboard New York, because the backgrounds and the buildings look very much painted on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was a style back in the day also as well.
Oh, no, it is. It's just the fact that show, it has believe it or not, it has 3 seasons now, and they're doing their own version of the symbiote invasion.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be interesting to see.
That a symbiote invasion live action way, yeah, it would be cool. Because people still want like a Secret Invasion Disney Plus show, apparently.
Yeah, all these.
That's a rumor that's still happening.
Right. But I mean, like I said before, like, is there a place for Bendis to be in DC to do all the stuff that he wants?
I would imagine that possibly it would if he would have really spoken to Jim Lee about making that transition to TV or film, perhaps, because the only other comic book writer that's helping with the movie script is Tom King on the New Gods. He's co-writing that.
I hope that's good, bro. I hope that is good.
I mean,
I never read his run on Mr. Miracle, but I hear beautiful things about it.
Yeah, I have to. I'm actually planning to buy the Mr. Miracle comic because I really fascinated by it. People kept on telling me amazing things about it, so I really gotta look into it.
Because from what I heard, the character itself, Mr. Miracle, he has multifacets to it. He's like, he has like maybe depression and also like, multi different kind of like people in his brains that he talks about and stuff like that.
Oh, well, that's a different.
That's Moon Knight.
That's Moon. Yeah, I wasn't aware that that they gave him that psychological purview to Miracle though.
Or maybe I was
right,
wrong. I could be.
Because Moon Knight he crazy, but
because Moon Knight suffers from multiple personality disorder, and that's him. Miracle, Mr. Miracle, Scott Fried, much like his half brother Orion, they just share a hatred of their jackass stepdad, Darkseid.
Well, who doesn't hate Darkseid?
Of course. Well, I'd assume that the only other person that doesn't hate him out of his kids would be essentially Calabac and God, what's that chick's name? The new chick?
You're gonna have to tell me.
Oh crap!
Uh,
I'm forgetting her name right now. She was a recent addition because she is Darkseid's daughter, so that makes her half new god, but also half Amazonian
Big
because she was
Barda?
raised
Big
by him.
Barda?
No, no,
Not Big Barda.
no. She came out.
Uh,
She came out during the New 52 run.
Grail?
During the
um,
whole
Is it
God
Grail?
the
Is it
Trinity
Grail?
War situation. Grail,
Yeah.
Grail? Okay.
Grail. Yep. Yeah, I figure that Grail did her thing. She cared for Darkseid when he became a baby and he had to, regrow and become a man again. So Grail's like, the only one the only child that cares for him. Because out of all his
Right.
kids, she's the spitting image of Darkseid in terms of not only appearance but ambition.
Mm.
And she
Right.
can also use the Omega beams.
Oh man,
Mm.
that's gonna be crazy.
Yeah. But
Well,
I
I
mean
mean,
that she has an Amazon background because according to how they established her creation, she was raised on Paradise Island and she was there the night that Diana was born alongside her brother Jason. Because now Diana has a half brother, a twin brother.
that's. I mean, well, who was his half brother written by then? Who was the one that created that?
That was Brian Azzarello's run of New 52 Wonder Woman. That's like one of the last things he did.
Uh,
And the reason why they did that was because Jeff John expanded upon how Grail was there at that conception. And, Jason being secretly born as the only dude on that island, of course, him being born a boy, he was taken away to a neighboring island away. Because the only other dudes that were around Themyscira at the time in those flashback issues were like the Spartans.
Mm.
But that's it. I mean, so Jason was raised by a fisherman. So the dude is half, like Diana at that iteration, he is a demigod. So they originally tried to make him bad. Once again, back to sibling rivalry. But now his allegiance has changed. Now he's sort of, good. So they kind of get along.
well, in terms of stories, like who would be if Bendis really wanted to do that? Like who would he talk to? He would talk to Jim, or would he
I would
talk to
say it
Jeff?
would be Jim because it would be half Jim Lee at this point because Dan DiDio is out and you have Jim Lee taking over solely. And then he would talk to him and he'd talk to the new female president of Warner Media on film and TV. I forgot that chick's name, but that she took over recently from the other guy who had to step down. And he would talk to both of them because Jeff Johns has been technically demoted, and he's also on his own doing movies on his own production company.
Right. I mean, I didn't
I
even
say
know that.
demoted in the sense that he's no longer the chief creative officer he once was.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so he would have to speak to both of them on a let's sit down and have a chat on a serious level here because everything else going on, they still want to do a Batgirl film. They're still doing a Nightwing movie. They're still doing all these Harley Quinn movies and Wonder Woman 3. And they're trying to figure out how to get Superman back in good graces on film. And this whole deal with Batman coming back because of Flash and how that's going to help out the Flash as well. So,
I mean, if you really wanted to get Superman back, just have Henry Cavill back. That's it.
no, but that's my point. They're trying to figure out how is the best way to get him back when his contract has been, his contract is in negotiations for extension because they're looking at the success that he's done with The Witcher. And since Henry Cavill still wants to continue playing Superman, he's like, I'm not done yet. Like, first of all, he didn't even get to really continue. You know what I mean? Like, his route was cut short. So that's kind of where things are right now. And the thing that Bendis was working on as a film for Marvel at the time, he was working with Tim Miller, the director of Deadpool 1. He was working on a Kitty Pryde script solo film that was in development among the X-Men spinoffs at the time. He wrote that script, and Tim Miller's like, man, it sucks that we can't make that movie. And Mr. Bendis, as a fellow gentleman who is of the same background as Kitty Pryde, as a fellow Jewish guy, he has an affinity for Kitty because she's like his favorite X-Men. So the way he wrote her in Ultimate, when he introduced her in Ultimate Spider-Man and actually gave us that scenario of here's Spider-Man actually dating Kitty Pryde and it works. It's like it takes you a while to kind of like put your head around that, but it actually worked the way he wrote her. Because Kitty, much like Peter, she's another 15-year-old girl, Yeah, she's still who she is, and the X-Men in that universe don't change. And well, they change, but as far as core personality goes, they're the same. And the thing that he distinguished about her compared to her older counterpart now is that she's a super fan of Spider-Man. So her wall was decorated with Spider-Man stuff, like, the newspaper clippings and posters and whatnot.
Right.
Man, when she got to meet him, she flipped out. And the way that Bendis wrote that interaction was because he wanted to try and write the feeling of an actual first date, because Peter had broken up with MJ at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And Gwen wasn't really around, and Felicia is very much still older. Like, she's like 19, 18.
Right.
So like Kitty and Peter really gelled. And that's like, she fangirled out when she first encountered him alongside Storm and Jean. I liked what he did with Kitty, the way he wrote her, the way that relationship with Peter worked. Because they were a thing, and he was the only non-mutant to be able to hang with the X-Men, and it was okay.
Right.
And they worked well as a team up in the street. So that Bendis has a good handle on Kitty Pryde when he wants to.
I mean,
write properly.
I don't think that we're saying Bendis doesn't know how to write characters.
Oh no, of course not.
It's just like hits. If he really wanted to do like a lot more, he wants more responsibility in DC from what I'm hearing. I mean, can he just do it? He's such an established writer, can he just be like, you know what? I have this project. I think it will make a great TV show. Like his not current, but like his recent one, Naomi.
Right.
Like
right.
That I think could be a TV show.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I'm not reading Naomi, but I can see where that falls. I mean, now she has a connection to his Young Justice.
Exactly. I mean, she's connected in that universe, and this is actually something that Bendis was one of his main projects to do.
Now, I don't know if her connection currently will even come out in Young Justice season 4 and 5. I'm not entirely sure if Greg Weisman and company are looking at her and saying like maybe she'd be a good addition. Because she's still new. She's still a blank slate in terms of who she is and what she can do specifically.
No, I mean, what's happening in Dark Meadow, like we were talking about previously.
Right.
I mean, that title is going to end.
Oh, yeah, because that was meant to be...
when that eventually comes to an end,
yeah.
Do you think that Bendis can actually take over, or be like, nobody can ever touch Batman because that's a Scott's thing?
No, I don't think that would be the case, because Bendis already wrote his own version of Batman in the Batman Universe storyline.
Right, but this is the main title for DC. Though. This is the main title that DC has is Batman in Detective Comics.
True, but the thing is, Batman the main Batman solo book now is still under James Tynion. So unless they give Bendis, for example, Detective, after Peter Tomasi leaves Detective to go from there, I can see Bendis taking over Detective for a bit, and then whatever happens with however long Tynion's run on Batman goes after those 100 issues, I can see that change if he wants to write main Batman. It really just depends,
Because I think the new character that everybody likes that was introduced, that's Joker's new partner, was created by Tynion, right?
Yeah, because that's his. She's his.
Yeah, Punchline. That's an interesting character indeed. Like the creation of Punchline.
She's very much the anti-Harley, and that's a nice scenario in the sense of like this chick is like legit what you would imagine Joker's actual sidekick to be in terms of sharing his perchance for violence to that degree. And what he's doing currently is very much, he's taking it in a very interesting direction for this ending of the whole Joker War storyline. But Bendis's comic, which was the Leviathan new miniseries that was going to come out,
it got pushed back, didn't it?
Yeah, that was put on the back burner.
Is it because of what's going on right now, or is it because of something else that's happening in DC itself?
I think it's a combination.
It might be a combination, yeah.
Yeah.
Because business-wise, DC they're trying to get as many eyes on HBO Max as they can, which means that they already established that the DC streaming service is essentially out to pasture. So it'll be absorbed with HBO Max at some point down the road.
Yeah, because not a lot of people even look at DC.
Now, if I
Like,
had to guess, I'd say Bendis's project would go to that service specifically, be it a show or a film based off of DC property that they don't still have in the works as far as development goes.
right.
I mean, that would be a good
Right.
place for those type of stories, anyways. The darker kind of detective style
Actually, funny
story.
thing, today I just saw on CBR a little while ago that they're finally gonna move ahead with that solo Satana movie.
Right.
As a Satana fan, I'm happy about that. It's gonna be a separate ordeal from J.J. Abrams' crew's work on the Justice League Dark project for HBO Max, obviously. So we'll see what happens there.
So I mean, is
Right.
that something that a lot of fans would enjoy? Because I don't know much about Santana. Satana, is she like a
Right.
solo kind of like superhero, or is she like an anti-hero kind of
No,
thing?
Satana's she's a hero in the sense of like, yeah, she's a member of the Justice League on both counts, but she has a history with Batman because she's a talented sorceress, and you know she conjures spells backwards, and that's the unique thing about Z. And
Yeah,
in her
she's
background, Paul Dini elaborated that she is a gypsy and she has a history with Black Canary because they knew each other when they were teenagers. That's a separate thing. But yeah, I mean, Satana is a performer. She performs in Vegas. Her
right.
cousin is also a magician. He's another male magician like herself, but he, as a character, as a personality, he's a douche. They don't get along.
Right.
But right now, man, Satana is still kicking ass as part of Justice League Dark by Tinian,
Oh yeah,
as
okay.
part of Wonder Woman's crew.
Right.
And now she's currently, at the moment, still sort of like the love interest to John Constantine in that book. But also at the same time, she's trying to save her dad from the upside down man.
Right.
So would you want to see I mean, I've heard rumors that they wanted to do a John Constantine. Is that something that's interesting?
Yeah, I mean, John Constantine has a huge bout of popularity because of not only the fact that the Keanu Reeves version of that movie is about 10 to 12 years old right now, and I still enjoy that version as well. But
I mean,
his
we all know
original
who's
thing
a big John Constantine fan here.
it's the guy next
That's
to him.
right. Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
What is your
My
thoughts
boy.
on that?
My thoughts are pretty simple. I want a movie. I want especially starting Matt Ryan, because I think he is the John Constantine.
Yeah, man, that dude's
Um,
done beautiful work really inhabiting the character in terms of it's just I feel like Alan Moore would be very much he should kind of clap if he ever sees it, you know.
yeah, he'll be very, very intrigued by it because like Constantine is just a great character. Like he's just one of those angry British, you know, like damn it, I messed up, and he's like, oh bollocks, like you just automatically start casting all stuff like that, like it's just it's interesting. I want to see this happening. You know what I mean? I want to see
The thing
John
that
Constantine movie happen.
my moment of trepidation with the Satana project is that I know for a fact that in terms of mainstream recognition that's not going to be the case because she's very much she's very obscure only for hardcore.
Right.
Like they might remember her from the Batman animated series episode and then Justice League, but that's pretty much it.
Right.
I mean, she had this film would be her second attempt at live action because she already had one appearance in Smallville.
Right.
And that was very much a one and done situation. Putting someone like that in Smallville where Superman doesn't do well against magic. But the actress that they had cast at the time for about, 10 years ago, she was a good fit. That girl really she really fit the bill as Satana,
Right.
We'll see what happens.
I mean, there's a lot of these projects going on. Like, is it
Exactly.
gonna come to fruition?
I
That's a
mean,
different
fingers
story.
crossed as far as optimism goes, but it really depends on direction. Because obviously you have two different versions of her now between the version they'll cast for Justice League Dark and then this solo version. Because DC is all about that multiverse, right? So
Right.
Well, I think in terms of the movie verse for DC, I think they're trying to tell individual stories instead of just connecting it into one
Yep.
big one.
They're trying to
Right.
because they realize that they haven't had a lot of success with it. That's why they're going back to their strengths.
Right. But I think sooner or later they're gonna try to connect it.
Of course.
Well, right now I feel like now that if Michael Keaton does jump into the project of being old Bruce Wayne and having the Flash story with the Flashpoint, like it could open the possibility of the multiverse and then connecting stories together or just like opening a new universe in general. So it's gonna be exciting to see what DC does in the next 10 years. I mean,
I mean, a
I'm
prospect
excited
for
as a
him
DC fan.
to really finally get that Batman Beyond project off the ground.
Right.
Oh, I would love that Batman Beyond project.
Yeah, man. I mean,
Yeah.
that's been on paper since 2000. At least one version.
Bro, one of my favorite Batmans is Batman Beyond. Terry McGinnis.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, Batman Beyond's such a great story, man. Like the whole story is just fantastic.
So I
Yep.
mean, is that gonna help Bendis's chances if some of these stories actually works or some of these TV shows?
I have no idea. I think that's very much up in the air, depending on what he wants to do. If he wants to do something based off a character he's working on for them that he worked on. I mean, that's his, such as Naomi, for example. I don't
Right.
know. Like I don't know. Like it really just depends where he wants to fit. Because right now the only other successful show that they have is Doom Patrol.
Right.
Like Titans is trying, but Doom Patrol is like all the rage right now. I mean, aside from Harley.
Also, have we got any like news about the Swamp Thing show?
Swamp Thing is gonna go to the CW. They're gonna basically, shift us that season 1 there.
Really?
Right, but I don't think they're gonna do any more than that. Like it's
No.
because it's canceled, right? So they're only gonna view the
No, it
first
is,
season.
but that's why they're gonna that's why it was canceled from the service, but that's why they're gonna move it on there on the channel.
Oh,
I mean,
so there's a chance for the CW to have actually pick it up.
Right,
And
exactly.
keep it.
I
Yeah.
mean,
So that's actually gonna be interesting.
Did you
know?
guys watch like the Swamp Thing show? Because
No,
I actually haven't watched it.
I
Honestly.
for me, I just watched. I've at the beginning I've YouTube seasons 1 and 2 of Titans, and I've watched Harley Quinn, and I've been on Young Justice, but I didn't watch Swamp Thing.
because I mean,
I haven't watched one since.
from what I've heard, like the Swamp Thing title is kind of like a darker kind of thing, and
Oh,
so
it is.
is that equal to what CW wants to show? Because most of the shows in CW aren't that dark.
No.
Right.
That's
Well, I
that's
feel like
that's another big question.
what I feel like CW is gonna do is they're gonna view the first one and then the first season. If it does well, they'll probably adapt a season 2, but it's gonna be a different tone. Like it's gonna be lighter, because that's what CW does. Like nothing is really that superbly dark. Maybe besides Arrow season 1 and 2, but
Right.
besides that, like we won't see. Oh, and season 5 of Arrow as well. But I don't think we're gonna see a dark, too much dark, universe. Even though I still to this day want to see a Question TV series. Like, come on, they acknowledge Hub City like how many times already, and we have not
Yeah,
seen.
it's been a
Question.
couple times. I was wondering if you got a chance to continue the Death of Vic Sage miniseries.
I finished the second book, but it was only 3. I know there were 3 issues.
Yeah, I don't know if the
came
next
out
one will
yet.
come out. I don't know if the next one is meant to come out this month because I just got done reading Batman Adventures Continues #7 came out yesterday. I wasn't aware until I saw the review on CBR. So
I was still waiting for those physical copies, man. Still
I
waiting.
mean,
for
it was
physical
another
copies.
fantastic issue in terms of that next arc. So I'm it's
Right.
been amazing.
I'm gonna. I mean, physical copies should be coming out soon. I think.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so I'm definitely gonna check those out and put it up on my YouTube channel. For all the listeners listening in, guys, it's the RCC Entertainment at YouTube. You can catch me there.
You're plugging your shameless plug here.
I do a lot of box opening, guys.
But yeah, I mean, your channel is great. I mean, you do a lot of different shows on it. I mean, a lot of different content on it. So
I still have to check it out though.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Pretty good.
But yeah.
But I mean, I hope most of these shows comes to fruition. And I
No,
hope, yeah,
likewise. I mean,
like
everything they have planned. Like I would, I want to see that Batgirl movie. I want to see Nightwing. I would love, personally, I would love a Tim Drake Robin movie, but I know it ain't gonna fly.
I mean, as I said it before, I'm not the biggest Bendis fan because I don't know his works that well. But I think a lot of the works that he does is good. He tells a good story, and I think
He does.
that's what people want nowadays. They want good stories, and I think that's one of the reasons why some of the DC shows aren't doing so good.
I
Because
mean, if he didn't tell a good story, there's no way he would have had such a longevity success at Marvel
Right.
with Daredevil, Ultimate Spider-Man, all his Avengers work, his work on X-Men, and then of course now
Right.
with his take on Superman, even less. Like here
so
you're
it's
giving
it's
Superman
speaking of
Benito.
Daredevil, it's the Daredevil that we saw on Netflix. Was that based on some of the characters that he wrote, or was it
No, no,
like a
no.
completely
That
different
is
thing?
100% the Frank Miller version.
Hmm.
I feel like the
Mhm.
Daredevil, the Ben Affleck version, I think was, you know what? I want to say the Ben Affleck version could have been a little bit of his version because his name was an Easter egg alongside other famous Daredevil writers in the movie.
Right.
So maybe Ben Affleck's version is a bit of his run because it was from the time 2003 and Daredevil and his run was at that point the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
A little later, I'd say like 05, 07, perhaps 05, 06, 07, I believe. Because if I understand correctly, his ending to those issues it lasted 44 issues. The whole Murdoch Papers issue
The
wrap
run.
up of his arc, and that was pretty extensive for his run on Daredevil.
Right. His run on Daredevil was amazing, fantastic, and overall,
Yeah,
I mean, just I hope that Bendis
I
actually gets
don't,
a chance to
I
write
don't even,
something
I can't even
more.
imagine what other character he would want to work on. Like much like Superman, that's already established because he's juggling so much. Young
right.
Justice and Naomi and Scarlet and
Well, I was thinking like
Batgirl,
maybe a Constantine.
um, Legion of Superheroes.
Con- I think he'll kill it as Constantine. I definitely think he would make a great Constantine
Because
run. I still,
detective stuff,
yeah,
paranormal detective. I mean, I think that would be a
yeah,
good match.
Yeah,
and especially the Question solo series. If he did a Question solo series, he would
Oh
kill
my
it in the Question
God,
solo series.
bro, what is with you in the question?
he's a
Why
I
big
don't
why do
know.
you
question
think
fan.
question is the best?
Because he's just so freaking awesome, man. Like having like the OD conspiracy theorists, like it's like with all the stuff that's happening now in the real world. I think he could definitely use some of that stuff and just like make up a crazy story.
No,
You
I
know what I
agree.
mean?
And the
Like
thing about the question, though, Tommy, is that all you need is to watch the question episodes of Justice League Unlimited, and
Well, I
you
saw
get it
it.
all.
Those were great episodes. I definitely
Yeah,
saw that.
but that's what I mean. Like that, they did such a good job of basically giving us that the actual guy. Like this is Steve Ditko's one of his guys in the flesh. Like
Right, right.
it was like that's all you need. Like that's it. I mean his idea now of doing
please,
a longer arc in that
I
same
go through
vein of just trying to tie together
please.
current stuff, current conspiracies. Yeah,
I
it would
go
be awesome.
I go through everyone's trash.
Yep.
I mean,
It's
I'm a
like
detective guy. Like I love a good detective story. So that's why I'm very interested in seeing the new Batman, when it comes out because
you
it's going back to its roots, like
Yeah,
its
right.
and
detective
you
roots.
don't they haven't done an actual detective application on film for a while, especially to this level of a
Right.
murder style mystery, and
Exactly.
which
That's
is gonna
like
be
I
great.
mean that's why I enjoy the Leviathan series so much because it was all these detectives put in one book, and they have to figure out this whole like murder situation. You know
That's
what I
what
mean?
made
Like
it
it's
good because that essentially not only was but that is Bendis' strength because
right,
that's where he came from. He came from crime thriller writing.
right,
And so he was just taking everything he had done on all his work prior to Daredevil and his Daredevil and setting it in the DC universe.
I mean,
right.
will storylines in comic books go more and more towards like real life stories.
I mean, they already kind of are borrowing heavily because of not only all of Bendis' work, but Greg Rucka is doing a lot of that. I rather did a lot of that for his Lois Lane series that just ended. Those 12 issues, they really hit on the current stuff, as you would imagine they would, because of Lois being such a hard-nosed reporter.
Has Lois's Lane book went to trade yet?
I'm sorry?
Has Lois Lane's book went to trade yet?
No. Those 12 issues just recently ended, and Jimmy is issue 12 also recently ended. So no, not yet.
Interesting.
It'll take a while for both, I think, to get that conversion.
Probably one of the things that we were talking even before the show was the current state of what's going on. I mean, this has it's going away from our main discussion of Bendis, but like what we're hearing everywhere nowadays is a lot of cancellations, a lot of accusations, and a lot of people brought to light in terms of what they have done in the past that we've never heard about, but now we put them in a different light.
For example,
I mean, even today, you just told me about something that happened in the comic book industry that I never actually even thought about.
Yeah, and the fact that these articles pop up more is insane. It's like you can't really trust the industries now that we follow, because even in video games, the same thing happened now to the creative director of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. He had to step down because a former employee or someone close to him was accusing him of being unfaithful to his wife or something along those lines, like having proof of such infidelity. And he made the decision to step down recently about it. Mm-hmm. Even though the game's still going to come out, and everyone else of the team's doing their best and working hard to meet that release date. But as far as we know, this Assassin's Creed no longer has a creative director at the forefront.
Right.
So that to me is insane, dude. I was like, what? That's crazy, because it's like every day the same those type of headlines pop up in every single industry now.
Every single industry, like from the gaming community to the comic book community. What's next? The TCG community? Because I'm sure that's probably going to pop up eventually. We're going to be hearing like Yu-Gi-Oh players, stuff that happened with Yu-Gi-Oh players and
pretty
Pokemon
much. I mean,
players.
Hell, like one of the Flash
crazy.
actors is fired because Haley, whatever the dude is, Haley Sawyer, his Twitter blast, they fired him for that too. So obviously, season 7, they're gonna recast him.
Well, I don't know if they're gonna recast him, but they're definitely gonna, write the character off in some ways.
They
I
could.
Feel like
they could also recast him. It depends, because now one of the showrunner said the good thing about their situation is because now it offers them narrative unpredictability.
Well, they have to recast him because of the fact that you got his wife, his potential wife in the story. You know what I mean? You got.
Well, yeah, I mean, they took all that time to introduce Sue to begin with.
Yeah, they got Sue Dude on, so they have to do something about recasting the character. I mean, would it be weird? Of course, it will be weird because we won't see him as the guy that we know. You know what I mean? Like
no, of course not, and most likely the new actor would probably play him, differently.
Right. So
maybe a little bit more over the top in terms of the comedic aspect, because he's
Well, I mean, just taking what he wrote or what he tweeted 6-7 years ago aside,
right?
Like the situation that happened to this person, do you think that is worth it and it's the right path, given that that it's been 6-7 years since that incident? Do you think that he changed?
I don't know, because the same thing happened with James Gunn, and even though James Gunn,
right, which is what I mean. Like it's similar situation happened to James Gunn, but then the community wanted him back.
Yep.
If you're saying that if the community wanted this person back, would you think that it will be the same effect?
I think it would honestly like this is overall this whole thing. To me, it's just like it's to me, like, excuse my language, it's dumb, it's stupid, because yes, whatever he said was very bad. You know, he said a lot of he said a lot of bad things towards
Miscellaneous
females.
things.
Yeah, he
Well,
said a lot of bad
misogynistic
things.
things towards
Yeah,
women, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Just it would just
and
the
but this
recounts
was
were
when he was a lot younger. He probably was a lot younger. He probably wasn't. He's way before the Flash, like years before the Flash. And the thing that I don't understand is that people change throughout all those years. Like I feel like America and society in general don't give people enough time to change. You know what I mean? Like what happened to that? Remember what happened about you learn your lesson? You know what I mean? And
right.
you when you get
And
older,
then giving second chances, because even though
yeah,
they
you
gave a
get a
second
second
chance to
chances
James
because I
Gunn,
feel like a second chance is like not existent no more. It's like you
I
do
don't know
something
if this
wrong,
guy would
you're
get one as
done.
well.
Yeah. So I feel like that's to me that's terrible. Like, yeah, you did something bad, but can I have a second chance to redeem myself as an individual, as a human being? Like what happened to forgive someone? You don't believe in forgiving anybody. Like I just don't get it. Like I feel like society needs to be a little bit more forgiving, like it used to be. I don't know why we can't forgive anybody no more. We just jump into like oh you're guilty, that's
Right.
it. You're sent to jail forever. You know what I mean? Like, come on, like that to me that's just wrong. I mean, we are all humans. God gave us the code of the commandments. I don't want to go to religious style right now in this podcast, but forgive thy neighbor. That's pretty much what I would
but I
say.
think one of the things that's stopping us from doing that is because we're all angry in some ways.
Yeah.
Right.
No matter
We
what
all
it is not any fault of our own or anything that we did, but it's the situation that we're put in right now.
Exactly.
Every
And
little thing
everything
makes us
slows.
angry. Every little
Exactly.
thing that
right.
we hear makes us
Yeah.
angry.
I mean, the situation is there's still such a level of sensitivity. Everyone's just trying to take things in sort of a personal perspective area. So I feel like because of that, more and more, all these revelations are just kind of bringing out more and more negative news on a daily basis that you kind
Well,
of
I
just
mean, there's also like in big studios and corporations like that, there's always going to be two sides of
oh,
everything.
of course,
Because
Hmm.
on the basic level, that the Flash is a TV show,
right,
and that person got fired for what he said 6, 7 years ago from a TV show. Okay, fine, they can easily recast that person. But taking from the other side of it, look what happened with Ezra Miller.
exactly.
Right.
Ezra Miller actually put his hands
On a
on
woman.
a woman, and there's
Mm-hmm.
videos of it, but
Yep.
nothing has been done for Ezra Miller. So
Right.
what should we take on that? Because
Well,
personally, for
yeah.
me, he wasn't. I mean, a lot of people say he was a good Flash. I think he was an okay Flash. Like there could have been other people that could have played Flash better in
Right.
terms of what he did. But like for what he did in in that
But also for
incident,
what he did was a much more that was a much more
Right.
aggressive stance that,
yeah, a much
technically
more
speaking, should
egregious
have get
thing that we
yes
saw.
should have given
Now,
should have given him, or rather, should have been an easy example for disciplinary action.
Right.
right.
So, but yeah, you're right. They've essentially contractually they've
Said
I guess
nothing.
looked the other way on that.
They said
Now,
nothing.
it's the same thing. Like, let's say, for example, God forbid, Grant Gustin did something like that terrible.
Right.
Like let's say he was accused of something terrible, and you think the CW will like recast Grant Gustin, or they will just automatically end the show? You know what I
What do you
mean?
think?
Because I think they'll just end the show. Because why would they cast the Flash? She already had the Flash for like 6, 7 seasons already anyway. So
But then
68
everybody
going
that's
into
on that
7, but
show will
yeah.
lose their jobs. Would you want people to
right,
lose their jobs?
absolutely not. I mean, but how? I mean, if you're gonna recast them, you're gonna have to introduce like maybe the Ginger Wally, and just say, hey, like Barry disappeared to the timeline. I'm trying to find him, and maybe you could write him off like that by like having Wally take over, Ginger Wally, or even Keanu Longfield's Wally could take over. But they're gonna have to pay him a lot of money because he's so into his music and all movies, and I don't know. Keanu Longfield's like doing his own thing right now. But if not, they're gonna have
he's
to like
he's doing his
recast him.
own thing on that. So
Right.
I mean, I see the example you're putting. It just I don't know
I
because
think they only go after actors that are not established too much like that. Like
I
that's what I
mean,
think.
that's not
I mean,
necessarily
because
true.
like not completely true, but like
They can go
probably
after anybody.
Mr. Sawyer, he was right. I mean, I guess. I mean, it's like, but it depends on like the allegation and the allegation was terrible for Mr. Sawyer, but for Mr. Sawyer, I don't believe like come on. I mean, it was like 8 to 9 years ago. Like, I'm sorry for what I said. It was an immature mindset.
right. He
Move on.
apologized,
You know what I mean?
and it the reply seems sincere. It's understood. It can be understandable why Grant Gustin and the new head of the season are appalled of what they discovered exactly because
Right.
when
And he's
you look at
probably
it,
doing a lot. He was probably doing a lot of more positive work from there on. Like, he was working the Flash. He probably was doing some charities. Who knows? He was doing really good. To redeem his name. And now his name is shattered once again because someone had their feelings hurt and wanted to like expose all that towards him. Which, okay, I understand. It was still bad. That's the main overall thing. It was still like very non-tolerable. But you can't, you're messing with someone's job. You know what I mean? Like, this is how he supports himself. What if he can't get another job for a very long time? You know what I mean? Now, how he's gonna feed himself? He's gonna feed his
right.
family. You know what I mean? Like, you can't be doing all these crazy things. But some people don't care. That's why I feel like a lot of people are not forgiving these days. Not like how we used to grow up and give people second chances. There's no such thing as second chances no more. I feel like people just jump to like judge, jury, and executioner right away. Like, it's just like not cool in so many ways.
And I
But
think
that's
that
just
happens a
me.
lot of times in the comic book writers community too. As fans,
Yeah.
we're sometimes not very forgiving to some of these writers that's
Nope.
writing the character that we love.
I think
Right.
that's an issue on our part because of a massive, as people have told me, the massive sense of entitlement because we all have our idealized personal version of that
Superhero
character
in
in our
our
mind.
head.
Yeah.
Right.
So hence why we have that individual sense of ownership in terms of that particular version.
Exactly. It's like I have Frank Miller's Daredevil in my head. That's how I see Daredevil. I see him a ruthless, awesome, caring, troubled, broken man as Daredevil. But do I, do I judge other writers writing Daredevil? Absolutely not. Some of them I enjoy. Charles Soule's run with Daredevil was amazing.
Oh yeah.
And I enjoyed it. Chip's run is fantastic right now. So it's
Yeah,
basically,
it's
like,
good.
I'm liking the different variations of Daredevil, but it's still I still reflect back in my mindset of Frank Miller because I feel like that's the Daredevil that I see. Same thing with Spider-Man, for example. Everyone will see Spider-Man as Pete. I love Pete. Pete's my dude. You know what I mean? But like when Dan introduced Superior Spider-Man, like at first I was like, come on, Otto and Pete's body, that is so dumb. It's like that's the most stupidest thing. But the way he wrote him, the way like he started developing this Peter Otto, like I actually enjoyed. I actually found out things that I never learned about Pete. He was holding back all this time his strength. So he preventing from breaking people's jaws and putting people in body bags because Pete cared about people. That was his overall thing. He never wanted to hurt nobody. So people kept on getting death threats to Dan Slott because, take a Superior Spider-Man out, bring back Peter. This is absolutely terrible. Like, how you gonna do that to Spider-Man? Like, how you gonna kill him off? Like, oh my OMG, no, I will kill
Yeah.
you, I will stab you, you fat bastard, blah 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 blah. Some mad disgusting things that these fans said to Dan
Yep.
Slott, and I'm like, and I remember one time I went to a Comic Con and I saw Dan. I'm like, Dan, all these allegations of all these fans, what's wrong with them? Yeah, I know. I don't want to talk about it. You know, like fans are always gonna be like that. And I'm like, and I told Dan, I was like, Dan, you keep on doing you, man. I love your writing, you're doing a great job. Ignore the fans, like so. Just ignore the bad ones. You know what I mean? Like these people are
And I
like,
think is he still writing FF right now?
Yeah, he is. Right
Okay.
now,
yeah,
his time on Iron Man is over, but he is still on Fantastic Four.
Because I haven't followed up on FF like for a while. That's why.
Myself
Mm.
included, because right now they're doing the whole Empire tie-in, and it's funny enough, a lot of those Empire tie-in comics are not on the list anymore.
Mm-hmm.
right,
Like what
Solicitation.
list? Like
No, I'm saying the list of solicits of where they were meant to come out soon.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I totally agree with what you said. When like us as fans, sometimes we take things overly serious in terms of the
Yep.
characters that we're reading.
yep,
And I mean, for Bendis himself, some of his characters, I understand like why some people don't like it,
right.
but I just don't think sometimes fans give enough time for the story to develop. That's why.
I think that's kind of it. That because well, I suppose that's true if it's something if it's a shorter serialized stance of an ongoing project, but if it's something like long form, like for example, like Todd McFarlane's Spawn or Walking Dead, I think that's sort of different in a sense because since we're so used to alternating creative teams and different writers and artists on a book, when one team is over and someone else comes in for a different perspective, and then this whole deal of divisiveness stems, I believe, mostly from a sense of personal taste in terms of how that writer handles a character. Because I've had discussions like that a lot back when I used to hang at Forbidden Planet, specifically when it comes to when people tell you, oh, such and such character sucks, this, that, and the third, and I would just have to go and say like, well, technically, no character is bad, because a good writer can make any sucky character good. And I gave the example of Chris Yost's run on Scarlet Spider in 2012 with Ryan Stegman. When that book came out and it spun out of Dan Slott's Spider Island, people are a little iffy about that because I understand that the Clone Saga is a touchy wound for Spider-Man fans for the past 25, 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
But that run, those 25 issues of his perspective on Kane as the angry Peter Parker out there in the world, it was awesome. You have him, and then you have Ryan Stegman's amazing art, and he really captured the angry Spider-Man's sort of road to redemption in his own personal way. Scarlet Spider is a great run, and that to me is a great prime example of taking what would be conceived as a lesser character and making him work because you have a good team behind it.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So and that's a rarity. Not a lot of that continues to happen nowadays, because whenever it does on the market, there's no way a book like that will even last the 23, 25 issues it lasted prior. Stuff is being canceled like even less than that.
Well, I definitely know DC is canceling a lot of its titles,
Yeah.
which is
And I understand Bendis
sad.
got a lot of flack for Young Justice in terms of what he did to Tim Drake with the Change of the Code name.
Is it
Right.
is Red Robin or something like that? Is
No,
it?
it
Or is
used to be, but now it's just Drake.
Oh yeah. Like
Yeah.
the sweet cakes, Drake's.
Right, but also it's his last name, and also the reason why Bendis called it Drake was because also his interpretation is that because that word Drake is also the name of a particular duck.
Yeah.
And I understand that the new uniform is it's also very divisive among Tim Drake fans, and I just call it like this is Ben is treating Tim as a vigilante UPS employee. Because he's not Robin. Right now, he's just a UPS superhero.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I've
That's
read. I mean, I've watched like videos of reactions of people.
yeah,
When that character came up, and they hated it.
yeah,
They're saying like Bendis is killing
yeah.
Robin again, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like he's killing this comic book, and why
Right.
they're letting Bendis do this. And
And
I'm
it's
like,
funny because Bendis himself in that issue the issue solicit for when that change was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
He sounded like he had the utmost respect of for Tim Drake, and he was very much a Tim Drake fan. And the change, because we know the change isn't permanent,
I
because
mean,
nothing ever
anything in
is,
comic books is not permanent.
and he'll go back to status quo at some point.
Right.
I mean, the reason why Tim is still Red Robin is for at this point distinction's sake from Damian being the Robin.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the
Mhm.
first issue of his run, when he had Tim show up and save Jenny Hex, and she looks at him in awe and says, "Oh my God, you're Robin," and he goes and then he proceeds to tell her, "Yeah, I'm one of them."
One of them.
Exactly. Which, yes, currently that's not the case for you now because he's still wearing the uniform. But I mean, it is what it is. I'm just looking forward to the moment when Bendis, when the change reverts.
Mm-hmm.
Because right
Right.
now, UPS Tim he's trying, but it's not really going. You know what I mean? In
I
fact,
mean,
Bendis actually he essentially acknowledged it in the recent issue by having Stephanie Brown tell him, like, yeah, that suit's got to go.
well, that goes to show you that the writers will listen to the community when the community says something.
It is, but I feel like the only other change he did, the only other reason why he changed it was also because it's worked for Dick and Jason. And you figure, what can you do for Tim to give him a new code name that's not associated with Robin? Because because one of his other brothers is basically still Robin for the past 10 years.
Right.
So I mean, I understand in that side of things why he did what he did, because he wanted to spice it up a few things. I get it. But the amount of backlash of Tim's new suit, and much less Tim's new code name, because it just doesn't roll off the tongue, because all you can associate it with is, like, for example, if it's the rapper Drake being a vigilante. Introducing
funny.
Drake.
We all love
You
Drake.
have the rapper Drake in the uniform with the domino mask and a staff. It's like, all right, man, what do I do? Like, oh man, just stand there, look cool. We take a few photos. See if you can hit
Yeah.
him. Like, I can't fight, dude. Like, oh, why don't you have a trainer? Yeah, but he comes on Wednesday.
Well, I mean, for this kind of situation, I always goes back to the way they changed Batgirl.
Exactly.
Like the reaction when they changed Batgirl, I think wasn't as bad, was it?
No, because like that change was bringing it back to her original look, back to the gray and the blue and the yellow. And the funny thing about that change, when they added that suit from the Heroes in Crisis debut, was that they kind of brought Babs her backside back. Like, well, it was a little interesting that they decided to kind of make that change. Like, well, Barbara Gordon's back to using the Stairmaster.
I mean, even before that
Right.
costume came on, I mean, we always seen that.
right.
So I mean,
My point is that it's definitely much more accentuated in this iteration of the suit.
Giggity. Sorry.
well,
Anywho, that
but
aside,
I mean, going forward, I think for myself, I
Yeah.
hope that Bendis gets to do some of the stories that he wants, even though it might not be popular. But I do want him to write a little bit more, detective style.
I mean,
That would be
to
interesting.
to essentially shoot something in your direction. What are you reading currently, and have you read anything Bendis at all? Like, what's your experience?
Well, I mean, to tell the truth, I'm reading zero right now, which is why I wanted to talk to you about it because
Right.
you probably read more comics than I do, but because of the situation that's happening
Yeah.
right now, I haven't followed any comic books besides me going to on YouTube
Right.
and just listening to like Comics Tom, Variant,
Mhm.
and just trying to keep up with the stories and characters that's relevant right now.
Yeah.
So that's how I'm getting my comic book news. But I think the last thing I read from Bendis' side was a Spider-Man title. I think that was the last thing.
Was it essentially Ultimate during Peter before he died, or was it Miles?
I think it was Miles. Yeah, it was Miles.
Now, I know Miles has been taken in a fascinating, interesting direction after Bendis left. That is sort of hit or miss for people.
Yeah,
which is why the current volume is not really doing that great in terms of sales.
I mean, I haven't read any of the new Miles, but even before, the Miles character was always kind of a hit and miss towards people, though.
Yeah, I mean, it was very much. It had an interesting divisive reaction back at the time in 2011 when it was debuted.
Right, exactly. So
Yeah,
I mean, what are your takes? For even DC and maybe Bendis going forward.
I can't even imagine what other character to think of to give him outside of, well, your guys' idea for Constantine would work well, and maybe I suppose a question book would also work well. But I can't think of anything else because he's so swamped. Like, for me, if I were the new editor to tell him, look, you have a couple things on your plate, why don't you finish up your Injustice book and finish up Legion of superheroes, and then kind of decide what you want to do. Because once again, I feel like he's repeating history with how much he can handle book wise, number wise, because he has so many books at Marvel, and now he has a nice little pile here at DC, even for a guy that wants to write, TV and film on the side. So I wanted to I want his load to lighten considerably. Like, I understand why he's doing Legion, because he's good with young characters, which is why his banter for Young Justice with Naomi actually worked out, that meetup. But I feel that Bendis needs a lighter load of books, and he really, just give him a list of pick and choose any character that's not currently important to them, that's not another Justice League title, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And in fact, speaking of, what do you guys think that he would do for Justice League? Do you guys think he'd be a good fit for Justice League?
I mean, in terms of a team dynamic kind of book, it kind of depends on the stories that he's gonna write.
Exactly.
Currently, the Justice League book, it's I think they're done with Perpetua, right? In Justice League.
Yeah.
What's next?
That's the thing. For that book, I'm not entirely sure, because I'm not reading that version of Justice League. I'm reading still Justice League Dark and a little bit of Odyssey.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, if he's gonna go in a new direction for Justice League, I mean, it's a clean slate then.
It is.
People has to take that as a clean slate instead of be like, oh shoot, the last storyline was this. Now we're gonna jump into this. Why? So I mean, we just gotta take it as face value. Like, this is gonna be a clean slate,
right?
And see where Bendis goes. And if you give him like 5 issues and say like, I don't like it, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Like, just don't say I don't like it within the first issue, because that would be kind of, you jumping the gun.
I feel like his affinity for teenage characters, I could also see him tackling the next volume of Teen Titans.
Or maybe even Super Sons.
Yes, if they actually bring back Super Sons, which I wish they would, yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of people was clamoring for Super Sons.
Because he already has a handle on John, even though he made him a 17-year-old. He still has a handle on Jonathan currently, because he's the one writing him.
Right, exactly. So I think that it would be a perfect time for him to jump back, or bring back Super Sons, because a lot of fans like that.
No, yeah, you kidding me? I love that book. Like that, Peter Tomasi did a beautiful job, and the fact that we're only gonna get that in animation now with Injustice Season 4 is right now all the better.
And I mean, what as a writer yourself coming up, I mean, what do you think should happen, Edwin?
What do you think, man?
I think
I think he could be in many different scenario in different books, but it's just like
I mean,
overall,
being a
like
writer, I mean, would you want more on your plate or less in terms of characters, in terms of story, in terms of writing for different books?
I would like honestly less. Like right now, I'm only working on 2 projects, and I feel like if I had like 4 or 5 projects on my plate, it would be my head would be spinning all over because
Yeah,
I'd be like, oh my god, oh my goodness, like I need to focus.
it's
Okay,
that
so I gotta
balancing
work
act
on
that I don't know
this.
how he does it.
Yeah, it's just like some people are really gifted in that aspect, but personally, I think writers should just focus on at least 1 to 2 projects max.
Hmm.
They finish those projects and then work on maybe another 1 or 2 more. But after that, like it's just too much work overload can like really cause a lot of stress, and it's just like it's just too much. I think less is good.
Yep, I agree. Well, I already made my reason known,
Well, I
but yeah,
mean,
I agree because
hopefully,
Bendis is good, and that's the problem. I don't. It's hard. It's actually hard or very hard to continue being a fan of his style because of how his voice changes book to book.
hmm,
You know, at least when he had a bit of consistency, it flowed better on both sides of the coin.
Right.
right.
Especially when he was on Daredevil, he had like fantastic like
Yeah,
flow.
yeah, and his grasp. I'm not gonna lie, most of his Avenger stories were hard to swallow at the time, but I really did enjoy, like for what it was. I mean, New Avengers setup after Disassembled was pretty alright. I mean, his reason for adding Spider-Man and Wolverine was never properly explained, but the actual reason for it was pure popularity.
Right.
Because Spider-Man's been trying to get with the Avengers for years, and he was always rejected.
Right.
And yeah, this whole new Avenger, his new Avenger setup was pure and simple popularity. I mean, I enjoyed Secret Invasion. I still enjoy that
Right.
story.
Well, and with that, I think we had a lot of good discussions about where Bendis is going, and I've learned a lot today, especially of what's going to happen.
Yeah,
In terms of what's maybe down the line for DC, and maybe more TV shows to come as
yep,
well. And I definitely got educated on what's going to happen soon, and hopefully everything that we enjoy as fans is going to happen. And
hmm,
I mean, I wish nothing but success for Brent Bendis because as long as we get more comic books and more good writing, I think that's what everybody wants.
yep.
And I
Then they
mean,
get better material for the shows and the films.
exactly. And with that, I think we've done quite some time. I think almost 2 hours, and I think that was a great discussion. So again,
Yeah,
guys, if you
definitely.
guys
Yeah, man.
enjoy the podcast, make sure you follow us, and you can follow Edwin at
You can follow me at Arrow Coyote underscore 109 at Instagram or Barrage Comics underscore 2410 at Twitter.
and Jose. Is always great talking to you, man. Like I always
Likewise.
learn something new from you every single time, especially in comic books, which is always what I want to do. And hopefully we continue these talks every Friday.
Yeah, for sure, man. God, right now, you know, nothing but free Fridays.
All right, man. All right, thank you guys. Thank you for
All
listening.
right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.